And welcome to the new series of Dynasty DNA Fantasy Football Summer Camp. And we're starting it out big here. We're going with one of the OGs, one of the original guys that we had as a writer and a contributor for Dynasty DNA Fantasy Football Podcast. It's Candid Fantasy Football, Aiden Grover. Hey, man, how you doing? First of all, I want to ask you
how you doing, TJ?
I'm doing good, buddy. How you been doing? How's your summer been?
Good, man. Pretty chill. You know, I work at a wedding venue, so it's been peak season for us, but it's just more time when I'm at work to consume football content. So
yeah, heck yeah, man. Heck yeah. We're kind of in the dead portion of fantasy football and the NFL in general right now. It's kind of nice to catch up with everyone, get your thoughts on things. I mean, heading into this season, there's a lot of good stuff that we can review and talk about. And really, I mean, like, it is kind of boring right now, let's be honest, but this is where championships can be won.
It absolutely is, and it's also where they can be lost.
Yeah, definitely. And you're darn right there. And you got to stay on top of this stuff as much as possible. But I'm going to hit you with a lot of stuff today. I know we talked about a lot of things like we were really interested in together, like things that we're on the same page about, maybe some topics that you really are high on.
Absolutely.
But I know first thing that we want to talk about is, like, before we get into any of this in-depth stuff, is like some of this stuff coming out of OTAs and like mini camps. Like, it's easy to get turned off on a player if you watch a highlight video or if something. And you were talking about the Jamar Chase situation. You agree with it, don't you?
Absolutely, man. At first, it was Justin Jefferson's only a slot receiver. Jamar Chase can't catch the football without a line on it. I mean, this is just. I tweeted something like this the other day to anyone who was listening to it. It's like, this is where you just got to tune that stuff out, man. You got to watch them play in college, watch them on a football field where it's all systems go. It's 100% effort, and just like keep your takes locked on that and change them. Obviously, when you see concrete information, when you see a coaching staff really doesn't like a guy like DeAndre Swift, for example, you could get the writing on the wall that they didn't like him. But when you see something from a beat reporter, you just got to fade that, man.
Definitely. Because
you're best not overthinking that.
Yeah, and I agree, man. Like, I go back to the thing with Jamar Chase with the stripes on the football and how he said he was having trouble catching the ball and he was dropping it because of that. And people just freaked out. And if you undersold, man, you really got punished.
Oh, you're kicking yourself now.
Definitely. That's a good point, and I'm glad you brought that up at the start when we were talking, like, pre-show here. Like, I think
man, I feel like because you're going to see videos of just these awesome catches and stuff going around, and you got to remember these guys are in practice, man.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely, man. That's just it. Like, things change, and you know, these guys are getting better. You know, that's the thing. Like,
exactly.
They're raw. These guys are young guys. They're coming in from college, so they got a lot to learn and they got a lot to get more experience in. So really good thing to mention. But the first topic I'm going to hit you with during this off season is the 2022 wide receiver class. Like, I know you're high on these guys, and
I love these guys.
Yeah, you're a lot like us. I know you're really high on these guys. So I'm going to ask you a certain player from that class.
Sure.
I want to know, like, how you feel about them. Like, I want to, like, are you in on them? If you are buying them, maybe what you're paying. I'm going to ask you first. One of Dynasty DNA Ty's personal favorites, of course, George Pickens, the receiver for the Steelers. What do you think about Pickens?
See, this is someone that I thought last year, I thought he was impressive watching him in the games, but there was just so little that you could take from it because he wasn't running a very expansive route tree. You know, the offense was just lagging for the first 10 weeks of the season. And you could see Deontay struggling with stuff. So it's like, you don't really know how much of that is his fault and how much of it is just a bad fit, a rookie quarterback, a Mitch Trubisky throwing to him. But the more that the offseason has simmered a little bit, the more I look at what he did, he basically got the same amount of yards as Deontay on 40% less of the work as a rookie. And then what seems to go undermentioned with him is that he was coming off an ACL tear last year.
Yeah, and that is true, man. And we all know that ACL injuries do take a little bit of time to recover from, so that's a good point.
Yeah, and everybody mentions it. People mention that even with players like Michael Gallup, and I never heard anybody mention that, you know, George Pickens this is his first year off an ACL.
Yeah.
And he gets a lot of slander on Twitter. So
Yeah,
I really like Pickens, man. I think there's potential that he's not exactly what Twitter might make him out to be, but there's also still potential that he is that he's just like you say on your podcast, of all the guys that can just physically dominate a cornerback, like of anybody in this class, I think that's the one that can do it.
definitely, man. Like he is a dominator to me. Like he's someone that could absolutely line up and just out athletic you.
Yep,
You
just catch everything thrown his way.
definitely.
I think there's some Des Bryant in that type of archetype.
I kind of like that comparison, man. That's actually a really good one. So like if you were going to be buying George Pickens, would you feel comfortable just giving up like a 23 first to get him?
See, this is my thing with him. Since I'm a new Dynasty player, so I'm not 100% certain on values and stuff. But what I do is I'd read the room on him, and it seems like people are pretty low on him. So I obviously start with the low ball offer. Like, really, you're supposed to do that in any trade negotiation. But
Yeah.
just see where that Pickens owner's head is at. Is he like Ty? Does he really like George Pickens? Does he really believe that there's so much more untapped potential there? Or is
Definitely.
he panicking a little bit because all these mainstream media are like, buy Deontay, buy Deontay. Deontay gets targets. Deontay separates better than him.
Yeah.
I I would start with the low ball offer, but if you believe in him, man, if you're like Ty and you really think that he can be that good, I'm fine with paying like a late first or just
Yeah.
whatever you feel. If you want him, go get him.
And I know you are a big like Zay Flowers guy. I know that like he's one player that you do like. Comfortability wise, would you be okay with trading a player like that? I mean, like you think would you personally believe in Pickens enough? Would you trade him for Zay Flowers or not? I'm just curious.
So my thing is because I like Kenny Pickett and I think he's in a good system with Mike Tomlin as a head coach, but you know how much I just can't stand Matt Canada's offense, as I'm sure you guys can't either. So that's that's the only thing that gives me pause about it. But I think I would. I really like Pickens' game. I think if you want to take the upside shot, he's the guy that can just catch an end zone touchdown over two players. And
Yeah,
there's just so few people that can do that in the
yeah,
league. So he's got a good starting point to build off of.
yeah. Guy's definitely an athlete. I agree with that. I'm going to move on to the next one, and it's going to be a guy that I mean, he's just I mean one of the dynasty darlings, a dynasty diamond, Garrett Wilson. What do you think about Garrett Wilson?
I love him. He was my wide receiver one from the moment that I started watching last year's draft class. He was my favorite player in the entire draft last year, to be honest with you.
Yeah, yeah. I'll tell you, and then with the Aaron Rodgers, I mean, that has to be an upgrade, don't you think? I mean, even an age
Absolutely.
Rodgers,
Yeah.
that's really help. I mean, and that's somebody there that you would have to pay a premium to get. But
Yep.
man, he's just such a talent. You know, he
He's
really,
amazing, dude. I mean, when you want like what do you want? Do you want contested catchability? Do you want separation? You want like shiftiness? Always mixes up his routes. You never see the same thing twice as a cornerback guarding him, and that's why I love him so much. Is he's relentless, man. He'll do anything he can to get you off of him,
definitely, definitely. And I
and you
agree.
can see it because I mean, Mike White was peppering him. So sorry to interrupt you there, but.
Oh, no, no, you're fine.
Like, what do you see him do? He had sixth highest target share in the league as a rookie last year with Mike White and Zach Wilson. So
Yeah,
he's one of the best startup picks you can make right now.
totally agree, man. Totally agree. And I mean, just I know Garrett Wilson alone. I mean, you're talking like in a startup draft, he's getting picked up high, and he should be.
Yep,
You know, I mean, and he's someone that I think if you're in a startup draft coming soon, if you're looking for a good young talented wide receiver, he's
absolutely.
definitely someone I'd target.
I view him as a cornerstone piece in the mocks that I've been doing. I've seen him go in the second round, basically right after Jefferson and Chase, and I can't see why he doesn't belong there.
I totally agree, man. Totally agree. We're going to move on to the next one. I want to see what you think, and I know that you're not an Arthur Smith fan, but I want to see what you think
Is anybody?
Drake Drake London. What do you
It's
think?
just another guy that I love, man. It's just situations. It's like George Pickens, man. They kind of have a similar skill set too, and I think that the scheme is just really holding these guys back. So you just have to be patient with them.
Definitely, man. I totally agree. And Chad said that he loves Wilson, but Rodgers is such a diva.
He is
Yeah,
absolutely, man.
yeah,
But I think he's got his head straight for this one. I really do.
yeah. And like he said, though, and he is right, like what would be curious is, does he get into the doghouse with Aaron Rodgers if he don't run the right?
Yep. Uh-huh.
But Drake London, going back to him, we all know with this running offense, or is he someone you still believe in? Because I love
Oh, absolutely.
I love the film. Like, are you willing to wait this out? Like in a startup draft,
Absolutely.
you feel comfortable picking him?
Dude, so here's my thing with Drake London. I would feel comfortable picking him, but I almost just want to give it some more time and see if they just keep running the crap out of the ball and see if it just sinks his value even more to the point where he's just people are panicking even more than they were last year on Drake London. It's just like you look at the film, this guy's an alpha. Like he's a clear-cut number one wide receiver in my opinion.
Totally. Definitely agree.
So,
I think that a lot of people are giving up on him. I don't think you should give up on him. And if you do have him, I would not sell him cheaply. You know,
no, exactly. I don't know if I think they're giving up on him. I think they're getting a little bit more nervous that like, when are we going to see this? You know, it's taken Kyle Pitts 2 years now. We haven't really seen much from him. But I love London, man. Yeah, he's a great receiver.
Yep, and you, like I said, you got to hold on. You can't sell too cheaply. I like Drake London as well. And this next guy is just someone that like wasn't in love with the film, but boy had a great season last year. Chris Olave, and I do think the Saints are going to take a step this year. It's pretty obvious that Derek Carr is better than Andy Dalton. What do you think?
Uh-oh. You still got me on?
I got you. Yep, I got you there. But Chris Olave, are you still?
Let me see here. Give me 1 second. Can you hear me?
Yep. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, buddy? We lost Aiden for a minute. See if we can get him back here. I think we have him.
Hey, man, sorry about that. Some technical difficulties there.
You're fine, buddy. But Chris Olave, I mean, with the new upgrade with Derek Carr, are you in on him then?
I am. I think with him, it's like I don't know if you can expect the same upside from a guy like Chris Olave as you can with Garrett Wilson. But if you just want a safe pick, if you want like kind of like not to compare him exactly to like a Keenan Allen, but I think you could see similar production from the two is what I'm trying to say.
Definitely. And I know you're a Cowboys fan. This guy here is really interesting. A little hurt last year, but boy, when he played well. And that's Jahan Dotson. What do you think of him?
Yeah. I think he's also, I mean, you could just wax lyrical about this wide receiver class. Like it goes deep. And I really don't have a bad thing to say about any of these guys. And Dotson actually carried me to a redraft championship final last year, which of course I lost with the Justin Jefferson dud. But besides the point, he got me there. And when I was watching him, because you're watching these games when you're in the fantasy playoffs, and you're seeing how your players are actually looking on film, and he's getting open. He's making contested catches. He's making one-handed grabs. Like when you see the limited stuff that he put on tape, maybe it's not all sustainable, but I think he's just a great football player.
Definitely agree.
Almost reminds me of a smaller Terry McLaurin in that sense.
Yeah, and he kind of fits what Washington's trying to do. So, like, I don't know. Like, I think he's a good player for Washington. And I think this year he's someone that, could be a really nice flex player, receiver.
For sure.
Sneaky guy to get in startup drafts. And the
last, it's like he could be quiet all game, and then he just gets open in the end zone, and it's a touchdown. I mean, Jahan Dotson scored a lot of touchdowns like that last year.
And the guy's got such great hands.
He does, and he's quick off the line, too. I like that about him. It kind of reminds me, him and Josh Downs, I feel like, are very similar in their releases off the line.
Definitely. Chad says that he's really high on Olave. He's his receiver one over JJ, just barely monster.
Really?
Yeah, he says barely monster target share coming. I think he is going to have a monster target share.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I do think he's going to have a really nice season. I'm excited for the upgrade at quarterback, man, for the Saints. And they're one of these teams that I think that, I would be trying to buy into that offense a little bit because I do think they're going to improve quite a bit. I don't think they're going to set the world on fire.
No.
From an NFL perspective, it's tough to say, but like I really like what they have going on right now compared to last year.
I think I'm not saying Derek Carr is great by any means. Don't take it like that. But I mean, I think he's decent. He's serviceable. If you want fantasy production from your wide receiver, you've seen him do it before.
Right.
And I mean, you saw him do it last year in arguably his worst season as a Raider. So
totally. So
I'm not worried about Derek Carr being an issue.
Definitely. Last question, though. Last one on the list is Christian Watson. This is a player that Andy is really high on coming into
I've seen.
Year.
Yep.
He really thinks he's going to have a nice season, real sneaky, quiet, good, maybe high-end receiver 2 type of season. So what do you think of Christian Watson?
So this stance goes for him and Jaden Reed, who I know kind of all of us love.
Yeah.
But it's going to depend on Jordan Love, really, to see what kind of outcome you can unlock with Christian Watson. But it makes me wonder how much of that last year was Aaron Rodgers just making him hyper efficient, because he is kind of a limited application player. You can't run him on a ton of routes, but the ones that he does run, he's super effective on.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to ask you this. Like, we're all thinking Christian Watson's going to be a sneaky player too. But if you had to pick one of these guys, taking away Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, if you had to pick one of them between Pickens, London, Dotson, and Watson, who would you take if you had to pick one?
I'd say my top 2 are probably it's probably London's definitely number 1. Second, I'll go Pickens.
You're gonna go Pickens at number 2?
Yeah, for the upside, I think. I think his upside's just Christian Watson's more boom or bust. Pickens was clutch last year, and people don't give him credit for that.
I was excited to see who you would go with. I figured it would probably be London, but I wasn't totally sure. So
I think he's the most talented of right now of that group that you laid out for me. But
nice.
I really like the alpha and Pickens game. I know that's cliche, the dog in him and all that, but that stuff matters, man.
Yeah, it does. It totally does. So I was really anxious to see. I thought it'd be London, but I'm just happy I got it out of you because I know that's
absolutely. That's a tough one. All these guys are good, man. I mean, you could buy anyone that you like, really, in my opinion.
Definitely. Well, we're going to go into the next topic here, and it's the 2023 rookie class. Now, I know a lot of rookie drafts are over, but there are some people that are still waiting to do these, headed towards, the start of the season. Who's some of the, give me maybe five players from that 2023 class that you have to come away with that you're really liking? I mean, of course, not like Bijan or anyone like that, but maybe like some of these guys in the middle of the first round or the second round. Who do you like?
Well, my favorite quarterback is C.J. Stroud. I think I've made that pretty clear, but I also love Anthony Richardson. But if you just want to literally take a guy and just thrust him into your starting lineup on day one, I think Stroud's your guy. And really, when I watch him, obviously you didn't see it throughout the season, but when it mattered the most, he showed you a lot of ability with his legs that people just didn't think that he had.
Yeah.
And when you think the type of defenses that he is going to face in the NFL, they're going to make him scramble like that, and they're going to make him use his legs, and he's more than capable of doing it. So I think there's also a sneaky element of what if he does run more? I mean, Justin Fields didn't run anywhere near as much as he does in the NFL and college.
Right. CJ Stroud's someone we like too, man. I mean, I know I personally still have him as my quarterback one in that.
Me too. Pristine pocket passer too.
Yeah. And the thing is, man, is Andy, I know, and Muscles really are high on Anthony Richardson. They like the upside, but yeah, as far from a pure passer sense, CJ Stroud offers you a lot.
He does. I think he could just make any throw that you want him to make, and maybe he can't put it on an absolute rope on a deep ball every single time, but if you're talking layered throws, you're talking at putting it where his receiver can get it, all that kind of what he was doing on tape. And when I watched him against Georgia live, it's those are NFL throws, man. And those are throws that he's going to have to make on Sunday. And he showed no problem doing that.
Definitely. I agree with you. So who's another player you like? Rookie.
This one, obviously, again, if you know me and if you follow this podcast at all, pretty much, again, all of us are high on Kendre Miller. So that's one that maybe a little bit later in your drafts, but
Yeah.
as far as running backs go, spare me the Gibbs stuff. I'll just take Kendre
Yeah.
multiple picks later.
Yeah. And, I love Kendre, and like, I think that's a really good value pick in startups, right?
Right. I think so too. I don't think Kamara is really much of a factor, man.
No, I don't either. And like, if you're looking for a sleeper running back that maybe you can hit on, especially in middle, late end of the season, Kendre Miller's a good one to get. I really like him as well. When he first went to New Orleans, I wasn't wild about that.
Me neither.
It's growing on me.
It is for me too. And you know what's interesting, man? During the process, I was listening to you guys describe him. I was watching the tape and everything, and I was like, is there a little bit of Jonathan Taylor in his game? And I look up, I just happened by happenstance to search Kendre Miller and Jonathan Taylor's name together on Twitter. And lo and behold, I find a clip of Kendre almost comparing himself to Jonathan Taylor. So I thought that was really cool. And I think that obviously that's such a lofty expectation to put on him. I just think in fantasy, you got to think about range of outcomes. And if he has that in his range of outcomes, you're going to be really happy that you picked him.
Definitely agree, man. So you're high on Kendre. Is there another guy you like?
Again, Jaden Reed. I love Jaden Reed. Probably really my favorite sleeper of this draft, if you even want to call him that anymore. But trying to find guys that aren't like right up at the top that, obviously, you should take Bijan. You should take JSN. But I really like Jaden Reed's game.
Yeah, Jaden Reed, I really like that because, he's coming into that Green Bay offense. There's a lot of vacated targets there outside of Christian Watson,
Yep.
So, he definitely, and I've always said, like, Romeo Doubs is a non-factor to me.
Me too. He's a fine wide receiver 3, I think.
Yeah, I think he can step right in and take control of that whole situation.
For sure. When you look at what Dobbs was last year in terms of being a project player, I think Jaden Reed's so much farther along in development than that.
Yeah, definitely.
And Watson's not necessarily a target earner like that. Sorry.
Chad says Kendre has to beat out Taysom at running back, sadly.
Thankfully, Sean Payton's not there anymore to give Taysom Hill freaking 10 carries a game.
Get him involved somehow.
Yeah, but they paid him, so they got to put him on the field in some stance.
Definitely, man. So, okay, moving out of the 23 class, and I know a lot of them guys I like too, so we're on the same page there. For the Cowboys, I know you're a Cowboys fan, so I want to talk a little bit of Dallas stuff because I know you're keeping up tabs with them. You know what's kind of going on there. And I want to start out with this tight end situation, man. With the departure of Dalton Schultz, now you got a big opening with 3 guys really that could step in there. We got Jake Ferguson, Luke Schoonmaker, and then is it Peyton Hendershot? Is that what?
Yeah. These guys all have the weirdest names, man.
Yeah. So really, that is wide open, and I'm just curious to see who you think might get that job.
So I think there's obviously a reason. The Schoonmaker pick kind of baffled me a little bit at first. I really thought we were going to take a receiver there, but with him, man, I think that's like you guys said. I think he might just be one of those guys that's just a better football player than he is a fantasy asset.
Definitely.
And so when both of these guys are that cheap, I want Jake Ferguson. Man. Give me the guy that I think is going to be running the routes to a higher extent.
Yeah, I kind of figured you'd be leaning Ferguson. I know you said you liked him in the past. And
there's more behind that. There's here I go with these lofty comparisons, Vince. When I watch Ferguson, I've seen a couple other Cowboys fans say this too, and I don't mean that he's going to be anywhere near this type of player, but when you simply just talk about how he wins, it is very Travis Kelce-esque.
Yeah, totally agree, man.
He's big, he's lean, he's very shifty. He kind of catches the ball, and it's like the same thing with Kelce. You can't tackle him just because he's big. It's because he just is in your blind spot every single time.
I've seen some I'm not as well known on to Ferguson as you are, obviously being a Dallas fan, but I've seen some videos of him, and he does have some high end capabilities, I think, in his game. So I don't know. And I said this on the last podcast that I think that Dallas knows what they're doing.
They definitely know the tight end position.
Yeah,
If I'm going to say one thing about my team over the years, that's for certain.
yeah, they've got
Probably the best decision.
they got Jason Witten late. They got Dalton Schultz late. I mean, they seem to have a knack to getting these guys later, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And Jake Ferguson was a late round guy, and he's got a year in that system. I mean, a lot of these people that are in on Schumacher. I mean, I think that you got to temper your expectations because tight end is the hardest position to learn as a rookie. So I really am with you. I think Ferguson has the inside track on that.
And there's one more thing for that too. I'm not sure that drafting Schoonmaker should put you off of Ferguson. I think if there's any offense that I want to compare this how it looks since they took Hendershot last year, they took Ferguson both in the same draft. They take another tight end. It just has elements of a Greg Roman type of offense.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Where it's like you're going to use him to block, you're going to use him to catch. So when they're all that cheap, give me the guy that I feel has a lot of upside. Maybe it doesn't pay off, but if it does pay off with Ferguson, again, it's like these minimal costs to acquire. If they hit, you're going to be so happy you picked them.
Definitely agree. Well, I want to ask you this now, moving into Dak Prescott, and he was a topic of conversation during our last podcast too. Really, like his value is really low right now, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we're really in on him. I think you could get him fairly cheap, and I think it could be a really good move. I do like the addition of Brandon Cooks coming in.
I do too.
And I think that, you know, they're going to be able to sling it around pretty good this year. Do you think he's capable of finishing in the top 7 or around there?
To be honest, not to sound like a homer, I think he's capable of being a top 5 quarterback. It's just like, do they want him to throw that much? Because when we've seen it, man, when they let him air it out, I mean, you had Amari Cooper getting 30 points a game in fantasy. You would have CeeDee Lamb getting 35-point games. It's like Dak has an elite fantasy ceiling. It's just the system, they want to run that ball. I know McCarthy is so committed to running the ball that it's like, I'm just not sure he's going to get the passing volume to do that. But then again, you have to think like this is a tough division, man. And he's probably, regardless of what McCarthy wants to do, he's going to have to throw the ball.
Definitely. So if I had to peg you down right now, Dak Prescott, where would you put him? Like after, let's say the 2023 season's over, where would you put him in the rankings? Where do you think he finishes? If you had to guess.
I put him as a low end QB1. I think I'd put him probably right where you said, maybe like QB6, 7.
7 in that range. I have confidence. I think he can be around there too. So I was really anxious to see what you thought. Another thing dealing with Dallas is the Ezekiel Elliott situation. Zeke, we all know, is a free agent. There's big rumors that he could possibly be back in Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's possible, or do you think he signs somewhere else? And if he does, where do you think?
Well, I think it's a no-brainer if we're not going to sign anybody else. I mean, it can't be Ronald Jones. It just can't be. So I'm all for getting Zeke back, man. I think you just give him like this niche role of it's short yardage. Maybe he can't bust these long runs, but he can bang between the tackles and he can get you those goal line touchdowns. And I think last year showed that split that they had with him and Pollard was just perfect. I think that's the model backfield where each guy touches the ball about 50% of the time, and they both have specific roles, but they're not tells. Like, you don't have them on the field, and it's just like, okay, Zeke's in, it's going to be a 1-yard rush. Like, all right, Pollard's in, he's going to catch a pass. Like, any of them could get the ball in any way, shape, or form, but they're also kept healthy from that touch share, and like their best skill sets are maximized by that. So I'm all for bringing Zeke back, man. And by the looks of it, it doesn't seem like there's much of a market for him elsewhere.
That's it, man. Like we heard when he was first cut Philadelphia, Cincinnati. I mean, this was all flying around, and he has not landed anywhere yet. So I don't know. I think that's the most logical thing that he lands back in Dallas. But if there is one spot, if you had to guess, where do you think? I mean, what do you think's possible if you had to pick one team?
Minnesota, I think.
You think Minnesota have?
I think that's a cheap, like, just stopgap signing for them because I just look. I think Madison's good, but there's a reason he's been a second stringer all this time. I get Dalvin Cook's amazing, but it's not like you saw Madison come in and start chipping away at Dalvin Cook's touch share little by little. Like he's just strictly been the backup. So I think
Todd Ty's chiming in. He says, hello from North Carolina. Wish I was there with you fellas. P.S. Ryan Muscle's nails still sucks. Yeah, we know.
Man, those two are cutthroat, huh?
Yeah, they are. Ty, and he has the Byron Munich logo in the chat. I know you'd appreciate that.
Hey, nice. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, me and TJ were just talking some soccer before this went on air. So
that's right. That's right. Juventus is number one in the Italian. But even though that we got deducted all the points, but we're going to move over to the different people that you have to have, like coming into this. Like I said, we're getting close to the startups now. The startups.
We are.
We're right there. So
I know we're in a couple together that are starting soon. So
yeah, we are, man. So it makes it fun. But I got to ask you this: coming into the startup season, one quarterback that you have to have that you got to come away with. Who is it?
I'm going to say Trevor Lawrence, to be honest. I think I've really been feeling him lately. I'm trying not to, project too much. I don't want to think that like Calvin Ridley's going to come in and just be like the AJ Brown to Jalen Hurts. Yeah. But I think Trevor Lawrence showed you a lot last year to rally that team. And really, we act like they had a good pass catching core. I feel like everybody thinks that he had a lot of weapons, but it's Christian Kirk, man, Zay Jones and the corpse of Evan Ingram. I mean, it's not like those guys elevated Trevor Lawrence. He elevated them.
Yeah, definitely, man. And in a dynasty startup, I love that. I love that pick. Like he could be a cornerstone for you forever.
Oh.
And I've said it, Jacksonville's on the rise. I'm trying to buy Jacksonville as much as possible.
And you know what I like with Trevor Lawrence? It's the same thing I like about Kenny Pickett, man. It's like they don't come off the tape and you're like, wow, all right, this guy's mobile. But when you get near the goal line, they're big enough to where they can give you 7 or 8 goal line touchdowns a season.
Yeah, for sure.
And those are difference makers. Those are 6-point touchdowns in fantasy leagues. So
rushing upside for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that. So now I'm going to ask you the same thing as a running back. Who's one running back that you got to come away with? I know that you do your favorite series. I know you're a Jonathan Taylor guy. Am I on the right track?
You are. It's kind of along the archetype of him. Not as luxurious as Jonathan Taylor, but it's the guy that I'm publishing this article for tomorrow. Probably it's David Montgomery.
Nice. I like it.
Yeah, that's my go-to.
Yeah, you know that Dan Campbell wants to run the ball in Detroit. And I do think he's going to get a lot of opportunity. Even with Gibbs there, I do think that David Montgomery's going to get a lot of opportunity.
That's what I'm saying, man. The key to this league, and I know we were kind of bashing on the Jahmyr Gibbs pick before this, but if there was one good thing about it that I just brought up with the Cowboys, the key to this league that's becoming in the running back room is just complementary backs, guys that can both get a lot of work and be effective with it.
Definitely.
And I just think they complement each other so perfectly. I think when you look at what a completely inferior Jamal Williams did last year, and you put David Montgomery in that role, even maybe he loses a little bit more work than Williams did to Swift, but he's better than Williams. So I just expect him to be more efficient behind a good O-line with that. And you can get him at the 7th or 8th round of a startup draft right now. That's freaking insane to me.
Yeah, for sure. Ty says on here, what's your thoughts on George Pickens? You missed it, Ty. He's high on George Pickens.
I like him. I'm with you, Ty. I see Twitter calling a lot of George Pickens fans out, and people are just really mean about George Pickens, man. Yeah, people get really scummy about George Pickens, so I'm with you.
He's on the board with the George Pickens train. So you're with Ty on that one. You're against
Absolutely. Me. I don't think there's any problem looking at the upside case in that.
Yeah, Muscles is on the back burner on that one. So
that's understandable. They're all red flags, man. But hey.
Yeah, he said that's my boy, he said on the chat.
I feel you. See, the thing with him is sorry, dude, I keep interrupting you. My bad.
You're fine.
Not to bash on Quentin Johnston, right? But I think that people are hyping up Quentin Johnston's skill set. They're hyping up that he's big and tall and in theory has a long wingspan. Well, George Pickens has that and actually uses it and just doesn't get credit for any of that.
For sure. He's definitely undervalued and I think being disrespected. I agree with that. But now we got your running back in tow. What do you receiver that you have to have coming away from in startups right now? Who would you pick for a receiver? Someone that you got to have.
Devonta Smith, locked and loaded. I wasn't going anywhere else than that.
I knew that was your boy there. And then for tight end, who you looking at? Because this one's tricky. If you get the positional advantage by picking the right guy down there a little bit, it's definitely something to do.
Absolutely. I got a few at tight end. I don't know if I've made up my mind necessarily on who I want. It's kind of just whoever falls to me. So I'll go with two. I'll give you Chigoziem Okonkwo. I think whenever you can be a top 2 target, and this is the theme for the guy that I'm going to mention next. When you're a top 2 target, theoretically on your team, I want you on my fantasy team. If you're a tight end and you were first or second in the pecking order, then you're going to have a lot of value.
Definitely. Me, that one to me, I love. I love Chigoziem Okonkwo, and
he was super efficient last year.
And Preston Evans, another writer for us, said to me, he's like, TJ, is that really how you pronounce his name? And I said, I think so. I went by a highlight off an old Maryland college video. So I think that's right. But Chig Okonkwo, man, I love that one. So you have another one. Who's the other one?
My other one, I'm sure you're familiar with. It's Pat Freiermuth.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I just think really with Ty doesn't like him, right? One of you guys hates him. I know that.
Ty does.
Is it because you like Pickens?
He plays favorites, but I'm with you, Pat Freiermuth. But go ahead and explain why you like him.
I don't think he's glorious right now. I don't think he's like a league shattering type of tight end by any means. I just think he's nice and reliable, and he catches a lot of touchdowns historically. Back in college, he does it, and that's not a sticky stat, but when he's shown you the ability to have sure hands in college and the NFL, and last year, he's the second targeted player in the offense. So I think he had a 22% target share last year. Yeah, that's impressive, man. When you can come in, he had a good rookie season as a tight end. That's always a good green flag. He had a good second year. He's pretty athletic.
I do think he's going to get a lot more receptions this year in that offense. Chad said Quentin Johnson's a mediocre Pop Warner receiver. I agree with you, man.
I couldn't agree with you more, Chad.
He's like one of the scariest players you could ever want to take. And then Ty said he's still salty that we didn't take Creed Humphrey. That's the big why. That's the big reason why he don't like Freiermuth is Creed Humphrey. We passed on him, the All-Pro center for the Chiefs.
So that's like when the Cowboys took Taco Charlton over TJ Watt. Yeah. Trust me, I have scars like that too, man.
They live with you.
They do.
but sticking with the startup theme, one late round sleeper or a late round guy that you want to get in startups, like who is it?
Late round guy that I want in startups.
Yeah, like a sleeper.
That's
pick.
An interesting one.
It makes it tough, don't it?
I'm looking for a position that I think is just it's not okay, so that's not sexy. I'm gonna go with Isaiah Hodgins.
I like that. Because,
that a lot. Somebody's got to catch passes from there. And if you read anything that I tweet, I'm not a massive Daniel Jones fan, but I'm a believer in him for fantasy. And I think anytime that you project a quarterback to take a step forward, you have to project the receiver to do it with him.
Yeah, definitely. And I know you watch that division heavily being a Cowboys fan. So I know that that you got a lot of eyes on what's going on in the NFC East, which we're going to be reviewing them next for our next show. We're going to be breaking down the NFC.
That's going to be awesome. Yeah.
So, if it makes you feel good, I got the Cowboys. So I'll be talking.
No way. Nice.
Yep. But all in all, I really think that Isaiah Hodgins is someone to watch. I like that. That's a really sneaky player. Like you said, there's not a lot of targets, like big targets in New York other than Darren Waller. But, hey, man, the thing is with Darren Waller, like that is a great player to be bringing in your fantasy team right now. But if he stays healthy, that's a big
exactly, man. That's the only concern, really. And with Hodgins, it's like this is how I view it. I think last year he had Zay Jones, right? And he wasn't good for the whole year, but he had those like couple weeks where he just absolutely went off and won you your week. I think if there's anybody on that Giants team that can do that, I think it might be Isaiah Hodgins.
Yeah, definitely. Ty says that Calvin Austin's his late round sleeper. That's a sneaky one.
From the Steelers, yep.
Yep. And Chad said that he's riding with Terrace Marshall. That's a
good one. Yeah, I could see great college profile.
Definitely, man. And there isn't a ton of targets in Carolina either. I mean, they did bring in some veterans, but hey, man,
they don't scare me. No, Hayden Hurst and Adam Thielen. I think Terrace Marshall just needs to separate, man. That's all it is.
I could see that yellow streak going up your back whenever you said Hayden Hurst. I knew you were worried.
Hey, he's a good sleeper tight end, though.
He is. He is. For what he is, I think he'll offer you them 5 to 7 catches. And if he get lucky enough to get in the end zone as a tight end, too, he might not be a bad pick.
Yeah, I mean, who the hell else is going to threaten him for targets other than Terrace Marshall and DJ Chark? It really can only run a 9 route, so.
They got that rookie Mingo too, but you never know. Rookies are tough to tell. You know, they might be ready, they might not be ready. But
he might be someone good, by the way, Mingo, but I just don't think it's going to happen right away.
No, it might take time, but I do think I'm with you. He could be a good sleeper player to take. Also, at Carolina, there's a lot of targets to go around.
Yep.
But one last thing I want to ask you. One sneaky offense like you want to get into this year. Like, remember last year how like Jacksonville was that team and Detroit? We were kind of talking about during the show last year. Who's one offense right now that like you want to get ahead of the game on? Who do you think is going to improve a bunch this year? Since we're going into startups, maybe some like offense you want to get into and target some players.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to go with the Colts.
I like it.
I think last year, I don't think last year was indicative of the talent that they have on their team. I think you got a clown show organization of an owner, but you still have a lot of talent on that team. And I just don't think last year was indicative of the talent that they had. So aside from even Anthony Richardson, this is a bet on his upside and if he can make these throws. But when you watched him in college, he didn't do it all the time, but he could give you literally any throw in the book. I know I said that was Stroud, but Anthony Richardson could do that, but tack 30 yards onto that throw and still make it in a clean pocket, in a clean window. Josh Downs, Michael Pittman, I like both of those guys. I'd be buying both of those.
I love the Colts pick. That was a good one. And Chad even said Colts receiver core high five. That was a good one, man.
Hell yeah.
I'll give you one of mine. I think the Denver Broncos, I do think that they're going to be back. I do think they'll be a lot better with Sean Payton at the helm. A lot of people sleeping on them. I think Samaje Perine is a really nice player to get late. I wouldn't overpay for him or anything, but I think that could be a nice get in later rounds. Cortland Sutton, was really disappointing last year. Was coming back from an ACL injury. It just didn't work out. So that's someone to watch too, I
like that. It's a nice post-hype sleeper call there.
Yeah.
With a huge upgrade at coach. Anytime you get an upgrade at coaching like that, stock is going to go up, even if it's just a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. And Chad said about the Colts, even if he isn't in Minshew is already a massive upgrade, and I agree with that.
Yeah, I agree too. Minshew played the Cowboys last year, and that's the game where I realized I was like, holy shit, Devonta Smith is so good.
Yeah.
And it was a Minshew game. It was just Minshew was peppering Devonta with targets.
Definitely, man. Well, this is going to wrap up this first episode of Dynasty Fantasy Football Summer Camp. Like I said, man, it's just nice like talking to you, getting out in front of everybody. It's one of them things to where this is such a dead time for the NFL and fantasy football. So it's nice to get ahead of the game, maybe on some of these things, get some of these names out there, talk a little fantasy football and get ready for the season, man. And like I said, we are all happy to catch up with you too.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, it's been a blast. It's always a blast coming on here and talking football.
I'll definitely, and we will be having you back more. That. We will we're revamping the Stardom Situm show this year. It was just me and Ty last year. We're going to be having you on, some other people. So we're going to be having a lot of fun. So we're going to be getting your expertise on a lot of things. And like I said, I really love the way that you come up with some of your players and some of your strategies. So
hey, likewise, man.
Really appreciate having you as a part of our team. And like I said, it's always nice talking to you too and catching up with your brother. But this is Aiden Grover, Candid Fantasy Football. Follow him on Twitter at Candid Fantasy Football. And of course, follow the Dynasty DNA Fantasy Football Podcast at Dynasty DNA _. I'm the host, TJ Blake. You can follow me at TJ Blake DNA. And we're going to be doing this all summer, man. We just had to start out with one of our original boys, Aiden Grover, Fantasy Football. And catch up with him and talk some fantasy heading into the summer here. And I think next week, I'm not quite sure yet. I got to talk to Mike Kashuba. I think he's going to be on, but I already got a list of people that are going to be coming on this show.
That's awesome.
So we're going to be chatting and having fun in the comments and talking fantasy football. But you got to watch too. Aiden always is posting articles over at dynastydna.net. He's got a series going on now called Candid's Favorites Fantasy Football.
This is my favorite series. Yeah, right now I got Tyreek Hill, I got Jonathan Taylor, Devonta Smith. Like I said, the next one's going to be David Montgomery. I think after that, a little spoiler, it's probably going to be Kenny Pickett.
Nice. I'm really looking forward to that, man.
Yep.
Well, I know I speak for all the guys at the podcast here. We're all hoping you have a good summer. We're going to be staying.
Hey, likewise, man.
Definitely, brother. We're going to be staying in touch, and you all have a good night, and we will see you guys on the next episode of Dynasty DNA Fantasy Football Summer Camp.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. Appreciate you, TJ. Talk to you soon, man.
Appreciate you, brother. See you guys. Nice